This is finally the set of videos for the David Starr Rug Kit. They've been so long. The kits were so long on order, and it just seemed as though they were never ending. Something would come up. I had such problems with this thread, this string. Oh my gosh. So this is what the kits are about. The first part you will receive, and most of you have received it, is your star. The back of the star has the interfacing to hold it together. So you have a complete star. Sometimes they're not going to be exactly in the center. I have one that's way off, and I'm going to use that for my sample to show you how to do it. And you receive the pennies. The pennies are different shades. I told you when the first video, when I showed you the rug, that I couldn't use black, and I would explain when I did the actual video how to. So I will show you why we're not using black. And you have your 3 colors. That's your first set that everyone has been sent. Even the ones that do not have the little diamond borders. The reason is I didn't want to confuse you. I didn't know if I should send everything at once, because the threads are so close together. They don't look it on the video, but they are, like, if you don't have really bright light, you may use one and you're supposed to use the other. And it's the same with the inside part that you are going to make your decorative star with, and the part that you're going to blanket stitch the outside layer of your diamonds. So these are so close together. I just didn't want to confuse everyone by having all of this together. Well, what is everything for? Because I can show you on the video, but the colors would not be that true for you to say, oh, well, that's that, and that's that. And I could have marked them, but I know many of you take the kits apart and look at them and do everything. So I thought it was best to send the kit in 2 parts. So even if you have ordered the one with the diamond edging, you haven't received the diamond edging yet. You've only received this part. And that is the main part. It's going to take you a lot of time to do. Now, probably I'll start sending these out the end of next week. You have another kit coming, a part of the kit, and it has your triangles. They are. This is one set. There's another shade that I'm using. It's not quite that exact, but then you have your 2 sets. See, even I confused myself. Those are your 2 sets. This is a bit larger than it should be. I don't think there's enough on there. So you have this and this. That's what you use. The other one, which I'm not going to do in a ball, I'm going to just wind it around something so you can distinguish between the 2 colors. This is what you use to blanket stitch. Let's see if I can get it up here. You blanket stitch the edge of your rug. The diamonds are put on, the diamond border is put on after your rug is completed, blanket stitched, and your lining is put on. That's the very last thing that you do to your rug, and they are put on after you do all of these little blanket stitches and that. So that's finished, and then you just take your needle and tack it on. And I'll go over exactly where to do that. So that's the bit of the confusion with the kits that went out. Now I'm going to give you some idea of how I made the rug, what happened, why I'm using certain things and why I'm not. So we'll do that in the next section. So this is pretty simple, actually. You're just filling in your diamonds and your blanket stitching them. The difficulty, and I did have a lot of difficulty with this rug before I figured it out, is to get the diamond the right shape and the right amount of pennies, and the colors. The colors really make the rug. Usually you have a color penny and then another one or something like that. The only color that you have in this rug is your threads. So that had to be as close as possible to the original. The thing is, let's see, I don't know if I can see that. The original rug was, I believe, probably a 2-inch penny or a 1 3/4, but it has 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's a 5-stack diamond. I tried that with a 2-inch and it just didn't look right. There wasn't enough going on. You know, it just looked it looked wrong. So I decided I would try it with a smaller penny and a larger amount of pennies to make the diamond, and that's really what worked. It's a 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 by 7 diamond compared to the original, which is a 5. So then, once I figured out the amount of pennies and the colors that I needed for the greens and the beige and the red, then I had to figure out the colors that they were stitched on, because if you, I don't know if this is going to show, this is green out here, but in between here it's definitely a different color, and it looks to be exactly the same color as the threads. The same with the red. It's green, but when you get in here, in between the pennies, it looks red. So I sort of thought about it, and I thought, well, I'll go with the idea that back in those days, red was terrible for fading, for the dye coming out, and green wasn't much better. So I thought, well, I'll make it to look as though the threads, the dye came out of the threads on the fabric below. So in order to do that, I had to do different colors. Now, if this would have been a rug that you just plop these on, big piece of material, it would have been fine. It would have been so easy. But I had to do it difficult. So I had to put every diamond a different color to represent that thread, the dye from that thread going in the fabric. I used a piece of cloth to keep them together, but then I found out, well, I can't do that and send it to you. I can't send them to you without putting it together, because they are so finicky and tricky to put together. Even I had trouble doing it. So I got the idea of using the fusing, the interfacing, and that worked good. But to look at the rug with the pennies on, you know, you don't really notice that it's this color, or really this color, or the green, because the reds and the different colors of the of the thread take over. But it does matter, and I'll show you why it does matter. And I think I'll do that in another little part of the video because I have to set it. So I'll be right back. So once I figured out that the base had to look as though that the dye had run, then I got to the part about the pennies. Well, what do I use for pennies? And I automatically thought, well, it's a dark color. It's definitely a dark color. I tried black. And black is very difficult to use if you want a rug to look like an antique. And this is why, because these are true black. This is a black wool. It's not dyed, it's natural black, I think it is. If you do dye the black, you can adjust it a bit. But this is an antique rug. I don't know if you can see that. It has a lot, it has navy, and it has like a green, and it has, this is a black. But look at the difference. That is a nice color. It's black, but it's worn, it's faded, but you can't use a real black that you can find today in place of the antique black that you would find in an old rug. It's been faded, it's been worn. So unless you are inclined to dye your own wool and you have a favorite recipe for antique black, most of the time, not always, but most of the time, I never use black. The other reason that I don't use black, and I knew it wasn't black, is if you're using strong colors with the thread, which is in this rug, it makes a big difference. It pops them out. It really pops the color out, and you don't want that. So I couldn't use black. I had to use an antique black, which I didn't have, or I had to figure out what to use and how to do the pennies. And I'll show you that in the next video, because I'm going to take this away and put the base on, and we'll start with how you put it together. I'll be right back. So I couldn't use dark pennies, so I thought if the dye ran in the thread, it would go in the pennies. So the pennies would be a bit red or a bit green or something like that. So you have all sorts of colors. You have browns, you have an antique black, and that's the difference. Some you have strange colors. I think there was a really light one here. But you know, when you put them down and you put the thread on them, you don't notice them. Now, instead of taking all of the reds and putting them on the red, you can do that if you want to sort them out, and the greens on the green and browns on the brown. I just put them all over the place. I just took them and put them whatever color came up, you know, I just let it be. Didn't bother to put them in any order for as far as shades go. So that's, excuse me, that's your choice. You can do the greens and the colors, or you can just mix match them. So you have, each diamond takes 49 pennies. You have roughly around 300 pennies to stitch, but I've given you about probably 325, 350 pennies. So you have a lot of extra pennies, so don't worry about it when you have all those pennies left over. have lots of thread as well. Excuse me just a moment. I hope I will soon be over this, whatever I have, because it's terrible. I have my doctor's appointment on Wednesday, so I'm hoping. You may notice that you have different size balls of yarn. It's not that there is a different amount in them. It's just that it depends on who winds them on the ball winder and how much tension. We have to use their hand as tension. So some of them go bigger, some of them go smaller, but they're all the same amount of wool. So we've gone through the pennies, we've gone through this, and now I think it's time that we're going to put the rug together. So I have a few things to do. I need a needle and my thread, and then we will start laying this rug out. I'll be right back.